Subscribe to our YouTube channel and press the bell icon to get the latest updates.
The Modi government has stunned us all in the media and also left us quite cluttered in our heads about what it means with what the government describes as, hold your breath, the Information Technology Guidelines for Intermediaries and Digital Media Ethics Code Rules 2021. Remember, this sounds like a law, but this is not a law. These are rules. So they have announced these rules. The two ministers, the IT minister and I&B minister, Ravi Shankar Prasad and Prakash Javadekar, announced these rules. Now, there's been a lot of questions. A lot of you are asking me, what do these rules mean? So these rules pertain to OTT platforms, Netflix, Amazon, or whatever you want. I don't know that many because I'm the wrong generation. It applies to social media platforms, that is Facebook, Twitter, or whatever else is there, WhatsApp, etc. It also applies to digital news media, that is people like us. In fact, if we stretch it and see it carefully, the more we declutter it, the more cluttered it is. And it seems to me and to many of us that it seems deliberately so. Either deliberately so या आदत ही ऐसी है वो हो जाती है उसकी. Sometimes you do it also because that is the practice, because when government start making rules, they don't make rules to simplify things, and I can do no better than start it with a quote. And I know that you liked a reference I made to Yes Minister the other day. So there is a Twitter handle in the name of Sir Humphrey Appleby which posts very funny lines, and it says, there is one tweet there which I picked up just this morning, which says, there are 3 articles to civil service. That means 3 rules to civil service or bureaucracy. 1, it takes longer to do things quickly. It takes longer to do things quickly. 2, it is more expensive to do things cheaply. And 3, it is more democratic to do things in secret. Now, the third rule has been applied in this case because the government has said that they are simplifying our rules, they are making it all easier for all of us. And this is, in fact, the way the minister described it. They called it soft touch oversight mechanism, quote unquote. That's what they called it. But it was done in secret. Nobody was consulted. There was no hawa to anybody. This was kept as secret as demonetization or as, say, the appointment of Yogi Adityanath as Chief Minister of Uttar Pradesh. So, Modi government takes great pride in the fact that nobody finds out what they're going to do. So, in this case also, this was kept secret, like the surgical strikes after Uri or the bombing of Balakot. So, is this the bombing of Indian digital media or Indian media freedoms? I will try and declutter it. I waited a few days because I was waiting for other people to write and talk about it. So many newspapers have written it. It was also important to see the view of those who we may not think immediately are affected by this, like the big legacy newspaper. So today there is a long editorial in the Hindu. I would recommend that to you. Please check out that editorial. And also I am sharing it with you. In fact, the editorial, it's a full editorial. So Hindu has dispensed it with the second editorial, etc. So it's a full top to bottom editorial. And it's headlined, A Wolf in the Watchdog's Clothing. So the Hindu goes on to say that government says that they are setting up a watchdog for the media, but it's actually a predator. It is a wolf, shikari. Now, how they arrive at this conclusion and the conclusions we arrive at, I will tell you as I go over the salient points of it. Also, I might put in some opinion here and there. I'll specify it because it concerns us so closely. But before I go there, my monthly reminder to you, this is the time for you to take paid subscriptions to the print. But because you know what? All this stuff, it's par for the course. We are editors, we've been around, we've dealt with many crises in the past. The last big one was, and every government which has a lot of power tries to do it. Indira Gandhi's government brought in the emergency. Rajiv Gandhi's government famously or infamously brought in what was called as the new anti-defamation bill, which led to all the leaders of Indian media with Ramnath Goenka, the great Ramnath Goenka, in front, in fact, working out of this building where the print works from, leading a procession to Rashtrapati Bhavan, and he had to withdraw it. Even the UPA government, UPA 2, when they were really hassled by criticism, they set up an inter-ministerial group of cabinet ministers to look at the media, but by that time, they didn't really have any power or political capital to enforce it. So we know we've dealt with this. Every challenge is a new challenge, and those challenges are dealt with. But for us to be able to deal with any challenges, we have to be financially self-sustaining and independent. That can only happen if people like you pay for what you consume. So please take a paid subscription. Once again, the line I always repeat, I'm not appealing to your sense of philanthropy or charity. You are not doing that. I am appealing to your sense of self-esteem, pride, and also the value that you put in free speech, free media, fair journalism as a citizen of India. That's very important. So please do subscribe, and those of you who have subscribed in the past, have taken one-time subscriptions, please take monthly subscriptions. I know that I had made some promises to you just a while back. Those are work in progress. There is an ad-free version. I think in another 15 days or so, you should have it. There are some technical issues that came up. We are dealing with these. Also, I am working with DK Singh, our political editor. I am working on a political primer on India. And just to share a couple of rushes with you, you can see a kind of jacket and some contents, etc., etc. I think we should, this is a work in progress. We should be done with it in a week or so. And only our subscribers will have exclusive access to it. Plus, as you know, our subscribers get a bunch of newsletters every week, the fine print every day, and on Sundays, as you can see on the screen, I do what is called as editor's choice, where I pick up what I see as the most important writings from global media. So we can only do all of it because you pay for it. But we need more of you to do so. There are millions of you watching us, reading us. Even if 20% of you were to pay something, we'll be fine. And then we can also deal with some of these challenges that come, because every generation of editors, in fact, in every epoch of journalistic history, these challenges come up. Now, what are these rules? These rules, first of all, as they say, gadhe, ghode, sabko ek saath haank rahe hain. So OTT, that is people who do your Sacred Games or Mirzapur or any of that stuff, I'm not so knowledgeable. Although in the lockdown, I've done quite a bit of watching there. So OTTs, which are not subject to film certification, like say movies in cinema halls, or digital media or social media platforms, including those that give out internet access, say Google, so Google, Facebook, Twitter, etc., etc. All of them, these same rules will apply to all of them. So this is the broadest of broad brush with which they've painted everything. What do these rules say? The essential thing they say is, first of all, that there will be self-regulation. Nobody can fight with that you will self-regulate. So if you are an OTT platform, or if you are a producer for an OTT platform, you will see what is it that can be shown, what is it that passes the test of law, decency, etc., etc. And on the basis of what you are producing, you then also label your content as fit for above 18, above 16, above 15, universal, etc. No censor comes in. So far, so good. Similarly, there is a self-regulation for all the rest, including us in digital media. If you ask me, and this is opinion, I see self-regulation as the primary job of editors. In fact, people ask me again and again, what's your view on citizen journalists? So I tell them, I will accept citizen journalists once you start accepting citizen doctors and citizen lawyers. Because journalism is something that requires training, experience, skills. It's a profession, it's a craft and science. So all of us who learn it and become editors, self-regulation is part of the editor's job. So editorial intermediation is self-regulation. So that is not a problem, we don't worry. Now, this goes on to say that you will also have a compliance officer or a grievance officer. Now, we are small organizations. To appoint somebody full time as a compliance officer, all right, I might say that there is a system of readers editor. So we can have a readers editor. In India, I think the Hindu has a readers editor, and some of the others might have. New York Times has a readers editor. Maybe we can have a readers editor if we can afford one. So, okay. So if somebody has a complaint, and I might say us, it applies to everybody. It applies to OTTs, it applies to platforms, Facebook, Twitter, Google. So there's an internal compliance officer or readers editor to whom people can go with their complaint if they feel aggrieved by something that we have published, say, on the print.in. Now, that compliance officer then decides whether the complaint is to be upheld, in which case we can be asked either to withdraw the story or publish an apology or publish a correction. Usually, I will tell you, the rule with me has always been that if you find that you are wrong and somebody points it out, say sorry, put your hand up, say sorry, then truth is the best defense, right? So take a Ganga Snan and move on. Say sorry, withdraw this, nothing happens after that. In fact, people appreciate the fact that you said sorry as long as you are not so silly as to be having to say sorry every day. So that is done, all right. Now these new rules say above that you have to have a second tier mechanism. What is a second tier mechanism? That you set up an association. So say there is a National Broadcasting Standards Authority. There is a broadcasting association. There are two broadcasting associations, rival associations now. So similarly, they say for digital media, you set up an association. There's a bunch of associations. Now, you join these associations, and these associations will then set up an oversight body, ideally with a retired judge. All right, the association does that. That's again more expense and more work. So all of us, in trying to simplify things, the first law of bureaucracy, in trying to simplify things, we are complicating things. So just as bureaucracies like everything in triplicate, attested with rubber stamps, even in digital times, so they wanted digitally as well as in 3 copies, attested, rubber stamps, etc. So this is in the name of simplification, this is complication. So this is the second level, but remember, third level has to come, and that is where the nub is. The third level lies with the government. So government then will set up an interministerial committee. That interministerial committee will consist of secretaries to the Government of India. So that will be secretaries to key ministries, I would say IT, information technology, information and broadcasting, home because internal security might be involved, or wherever. So just 2 weeks after the Prime Minister said, why should everything be left to IAS officers? Any Indians can do any job. He is now, and his government is now handing over the final say on what is published on digital media in India to IAS officers. And what kind of autonomy, what kind of sort of hands off, or what kind of impartiality do you expect from them? Then there are uncertainties and gray areas everywhere. For example, even when your association sets up an oversight committee, first of all, the association has to register with the government. First of all of us have to register with the government, which is a very good idea because so far there was a suggestion that government didn't know who were legitimate news media organizations and who were not, because anybody can set up a website now and say I'm a news media organization or a YouTube page. So it's okay, it's a good thing that we get regularized. So in that case, we become regular from irregular. That's a good idea. Then your association has to be registered, all right. Then the oversight body your association sets up, that also has to be registered with the government. Now at every level, they will be nudge and wink, or they can be nudge and wink. Somebody saying, isko mat rakho, isko rakh do. Do aadmi hamare bhi rakh lo. These things are not easy. Anyway, even if you get there, now what happens? Somebody writes a complaint to a media organization. Usually, the editors deal with that. We check out our facts are right or wrong. If our facts are right, we say we stand by our facts. The person goes to our internal compliance officer or our ombudsman or reader's editor, whatever you call her. They go there. The person sees it and rules say in our favor, right? Rules in our favor. Then this person has a grievance, goes again to the oversight committee and then goes to the interministerial committee. But this interministerial committee can actually intervene at any point in this. What they do then is they don't send you to jail. Other people might be able to do that. They don't send you to jail. What they do is they can take down either the content that somebody is complaining about, or they can shut down your website altogether for some time. So these are very strong arbitrary powers. This kind of powers INB did not even have even during the emergency. I know they had the power of censorship and there was a chief censor everywhere in every state who was censoring copies. So I'm not saying that this is worse than the emergency. But in the emergency, the power then to shut down any publication at a whim or at the discretion of people working for the government or the executive wasn't there. In fact, during the emergency, when Mrs. Gandhi wanted to shut down the Indian Express in this building, method she would use or Sanjay Gandhi would use were to get power supply to the building cut off. In fact, this was done also for a famous newspaper from Punjab, Punjab Kesari, and then famously Lala Jagat Narayan, who was the legendary founder of that newspaper group, he used a tractor engine, tractor which was idling its engine to run his printing press because power had been cut off. But there was no legal rights then to disconnect people's transmission. Now the fact is, there is one criticism that's coming from lawyers who work on internet. So there is Internet Freedom Foundation, also Human Rights Watch, Human Rights Organization, who are very concerned about these changes. Say Human Rights Watch would be concerned that now there is onus on all platforms to disclose to the government the original source of any information. For example, original source of a WhatsApp. So what does it do to those platforms which are end-to-end encrypted? So you might have seen lately, I think everybody's seen some of it. People are switching from WhatsApp because after this WhatsApp chats of Riya Chakrabarti and the rest, and then Arnab Goswami, etc., all came in. Everybody starts thinking, I have some secrets, right? So people started shifting to Telegram, Signal, etc., etc. Now, what these rules do is they put the obligation on any platform to be able to tell the government on demand where the message originally came from. If that happens, then this messaging cannot be end-to-end encrypted, because today this platform said this is end-to-end encrypted. I don't know where it came from. But now that the government demands it, will all these platforms make these changes? We have to see. They've been very careful about protesting or talking about this. They've been saying we'll engage with the government. They know they engage with the government. They are very powerful. They are global powers. They are more powerful than most sovereign countries right now. So they think, yeah, this is between big boys. We in the government will handle it. Thoda give and take ho jayega. We'll do something. But this is fraught with many dangers. So Internet Freedom Foundation also has lawyers who think about these things. There is Apar Gupta, for example, a young lawyer who talks about internet freedoms and who writes about them, and it takes up many of those cases also. Now he points out to us, and you see his writings, that these new rules are not based in any legislation. They are not based in any parliamentary approval. So these are just arbitrarily made using Section 79 of the IT Act. Now, you don't want me to take you into the minutiae of that act. But he says that using that, they've just done all this and given themselves such powers purely through executive orders. This is not done. Now, whether this will pass the test of Supreme Court or not, but that will happen much later. The fact is that right now, this has been done in a very dramatic manner, and it is problematic in many ways. So there is Cable TV Act, there is which you need because TV channels have to uplink and downlink. But digital publishing, you don't have to do any of that. Once you register with the government, that is fine. And the government, then our data is well known, who's reading us, how many people are watching us, how many people are reading us, for how long. That's all well known. In digital media, there is no possibility of a bark-like scandal because everything is well known. Anybody can check it out. But then there are other laws also. The current laws in the media, from defamation to contempt of court, every law of the land applies to us in the media, including some difficult laws like 295A. And I have faced many cases under 295A, which means somebody cracks a joke and some member of some community says, I did not like that joke, it hurt my feelings. And then it becomes a criminal offense. It's registered as such. So those things we have to deal with, but those are all provided for under the law. So where is the need? The question we ask, and that's an opinion. Where is the need now for the government to give itself such powers? And also for people like you, our viewers, our listeners, do you really want ultimately a committee of IAS officers, or I hope not, IPS officers, who knows, tomorrow sitting at the top and deciding what is fit to print, what is not fit to print? The New York Times says famously, all the news that is fit to print. Now, if you had 5 bureaucrats sitting somewhere there and deciding ultimately what was fit to print, what was not fit to print, then it simply doesn't work because maybe we are not as bright as them. And if we were as bright as them, maybe we would have also got selected to All India Services and cracked UPSC. But we know our jobs, and that has to be respected. You will not have a committee of civil service officers tomorrow overseeing, say, it's a bad parallel right now, but say the Medical Council of India. It doesn't happen like that. Professions have to be watchdogs of their own profession. So once again, I'll go over a few points quickly. One, it's a cumbersome structure, 3 tiers with government committee. At the top, government employees committees. Whatever level officers, they are government employees. You don't see them going against the wishes of Government of India. They are not even judges. Judges are government employees, but at least they are in a different institution. These are officers in the executive. Second, the press so far, and this I quote from the Hindu editorial, all along has been able to self-regulate based on the mature understanding that any government presence could have a chilling effect on free speech and conversation. But this is government presence and legitimized not by a law, but legitimized by an executive order. Then a Press Council of India Code of Ethics already applies to us. In fact, if you go to the Print's website, you will find our Code of Ethics, which actually is much tougher than Press Council of India's Code of Ethics and is very unforgiving. Then there's a programming code that the cable TV network, etc. have. So that is also there. But this is now bringing, again I'm taking this line from the Hindu, this is giving the government presence a vicious life into the practice of journalism. And this can only have bad implications going ahead. Now anybody can be dissatisfied with the grievance officer. Anybody can be then dissatisfied with self-regulating body and then go to oversight mechanism, and this can be set up by the government of the day. कि बेटा उधर जाके तुम शिकायत करो. That doesn't matter what they see. You say I am dissatisfied, then you come to us and then we'll deal with these guys. Now if you said these things have not happened in India, it would have been different, but these things have happened in India. And if you compare this with other countries, say look at Britain. Britain has Ofcom, which is truly autonomous. Government has nothing to do with this. And Ofcom very often works to protect freedom of the press than to curtail it. There is nothing autonomous about this oversight body. This is a government takeover of journalism and free speech in India, whichever way you look at it. So once again, in conclusion, as far as illegal content is concerned, the laws to regulate it are already there. What does this mean? This means that government is also impatient about the news media. Don't think it's only about digital news media, that newspapers are safe. Now you might see a newspaper like the Hindu, the Indian Express, the Times of India, Jagran, Bharat Times, any of the papers, Mathrubhumi, Malayalam Manorama, any of these publications, respective publications, they all have online editions now. So while in their print area, they might think that we are still dealing with the press council. In their online area, now they'll be having to deal with this system also. So they will now be dealing with two bureaucracies. So a story that or editorial that they publish, say in their print publication, if that appears also on their online edition, then which compliance mechanism will work with them? The press council or this new oversight mechanism? Or if there are stories and articles that they don't carry in their print edition but carry only in the online edition, then what will apply there? All that is unclear. And what is unclear often is how things work with bureaucracies, because the more I'm adding a lot of laws of bureaucracy, the more you try to make things uncluttered, the more cluttered they get. And that's where they are. So I can do no better than borrow a para from the Hindu editorial today and read out to you. It says, it's far from reassuring that this government has had an uneasy and sometimes unpleasant relationship with the media in general. The appetite for criticism, so vital in a democracy, is just not there, and that is why this watchdog will be seen as a predator. Now, having said this, I told you that every government, when it comes under attack from the media, tries to find ways to get around it. Even Deve Gowda's government, which was so weak, he had CM Ibrahim as his information minister, and even he would try to push you around. He tried to push me around. He would try to push me around one way or the other, even when I was the editor of Indian Express, because our photographer then, Praveen Jain, who's our photo editor at the print now, he would routinely find pictures of Deve Gowda sleeping like this, and Deve Gowda would be sleeping everywhere. So CM Ibrahim called me for coffee and said, भाई ये सुबह से शाम तक क्यों छापते हो देव गौड़ा सो रहा है? मैंने कहा लेकिन वो सोता है तो मैं क्या करूं? झूठ तो नहीं है ना, वो सो रहा है, फोटोग्राफर खींच रहा है तो छापूंगा. So he said to me, अरे भैया उसको छोड़ दो. Once he realized that he could not intimidate me, then he said, भैया छोड़ दो, वो सुबह से शाम तक इंडिया का प्राइम मिनिस्टर, शाम से रात को 10 बजे तक कर्नाटक का चीफ मिनिस्टर, 10 बजे से रात को 1 बजे तक हासन का डिस्ट्रिक्ट मजिस्ट्रेट, उसके बाद 3 घंटा सोता है, उसके बाद 1 घंटा पूजा करता है, उसके बाद फिर भारत का प्राइम मिनिस्टर, तो उसके पास सोने का टाइम कहाँ है? So every government tries to do it in different ways, but this is arming the government, and not just this government. This is arming any government going ahead in India now with powers that no government should have in a democracy over journalism.